I have a question that I'm going to answer for you guys. Is it easy to make your own handles? This seems to be some red oak that I had saved up. And I don't know how long it's been drying, but I kept checking it with the meter as I kept digging in deeper. And it was pretty constant. It was, pretty much ambient relative humidity. Look at that. I need to cut that off from here. And it's got cracking, pretty bad cracking. You could see I glued the end grain, but you could still see the cracking a little bit. And I also glued the side grain here, which has a good bit of cracking, and I removed a lot of material. A lot of the times what you'll do is you'll keep removing material until the handle is just too thin. And that's how you get a different kind of wall hanger. I just nailed it up there. I don't know why I put that there. You can see the cracking from the nail. But this is like this thin. It's very thin. It's just not doable. So I tried to remove as much material as I could, and it just didn't work out. And now it's nailed to the wall. So when it comes to making your own handles, if you're going to do it the way I do it, by hand, almost all by hand, I pretty much just use machines sometimes for cross cutting, and not to remove material quickly. I use a hatchet for that. It would be smarter to just do what everybody else, almost everybody just makes the stop cuts, and that makes it a lot easier to remove a lot of material quickly and be pretty accurate. But as you keep going with the hatchets, you get better, you get more efficient. So it's one of those things where you also have to balance out, am I injuring myself? Am I going to be able to do this forever? I guess that depends on how comfortable the handle is and how much the head weighs. But if you're going to do this and you want it to be easy, yeah, a bandsaw is probably the easiest way to do this. The hardest dimension, I think, is this handle thickness right here. Obviously, you got to do the handle swell as well, but this thickness is the toughest one because it's pretty easy to trace a handle and copy this part. This dimension is easy. We work on 2 dimensions at a time until we get to the finer parts of this. Now, this isn't very straight because I had to remove a lot of material on this side. So we'll see if we can even save this handle. I know it's got bad cracking. We'll see if, I might just send it with the cracking. It probably was not dry. That's why it keeps cracking on me. But it isn't easy to make your own lumber and your own handle. But it can be easy to do something like this. Someone already made the handle, and all you're doing is just putting it on the tongue. All you got to do is shape this tongue. At first, when you don't have a lot of experience, this takes forever. You just slowly creep up and down, down the handle, and it'll take a long time to get to here. Some people will just cut off a lot of the tongue and not even worry about having a lot of options. But this tongue is it's not on there a lot, but look how much tongue I have. So this is an old Killinger handle. Every Killinger handle is an old Killinger handle because he doesn't make them anymore, but I think it looks pretty good. Really thin. Some of the ash I've gotten in my life feels like really light. So that's another part of making handles. The lumber aspect of it. Now, a lot of this is, almost all of this is white oak, I really like white oak for making handles. It's pretty easy to shape when it's not kiln dried. When it's air dried, it's really nice to work with hand tools. Ash is also really great, maybe better. But I haven't gotten the best quality ash. Some of the stuff I harvested was excellent. Really dense, way harder and denser than the other ashes I've run into. But I had to move all my stuff after the flood, so that's why it's here next to some cardboard. I still got to do more. I got to figure this out. This is untenable. I can't leave it here. It was actually molding on these bottoms. Now, I hear that mold only goes dormant. It does not die. But as it is now, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I'm not really worried about, is it wet? It's not wet, really. Yeah, it looks good to me. I mean, I don't think I need to do anything else. If it's dormant, I'm going to cut it off anyway. As long as it doesn't get wet again, it should be okay. So another aspect of making your own handles, especially from scratch when you rive your own lumber, is that it's you don't just get 30 billets out of a huge, 36-inch long, 30-inch diameter. That's actually really big. You'd probably get more than 30 billets if you're smart, way more. But anyway, 23-inch diameter white oak. You don't just get 30 handles. You get 30 possible billets maybe, and then they have to last. They have to survive. So they might crack, depending on how you've been drying things. I didn't dry things perfectly, so I've run into a lot of cracking, and now I understand they need to be tight together for a little while. Not tight exactly, but I need a balance between mold and cracking. So I need a little bit of moisture while they're drying, kind of like to slow down the loss of moisture in there. But yeah, it's not the easiest thing, I'd say. I'd say making a handle is not easy. It took me so long to feel good about the handles I make. One of the reasons why I could actually start making a decent handle is because I found good vintage handles to copy. Now look how bent that is. So I'm not going to use this, but one of the most perfectly comfortable swells I've ever felt. And I'll let you take a look at this so you can get an idea. You see how far up the taper finally comes in this dimension? It doesn't taper for quite a while. I mean, I guess it gets thicker here, but you could make it even thinner there. But that is just perfectly comfortable. Really great. We'll look at the Killinger handle now. Let's check out the swell on this bad boy. Yeah, you see it doesn't really, I guess it starts getting thick here. Pretty similar. A little different, but yeah, I was really bad at making handles until I had a vintage style handle to copy. And this isn't just vintage style, this is vintage. You could see this was hung a bunch of times. I filed this down so it doesn't break if I were to hang it. Or maybe I just got rid of some cracking. This doesn't want to work very well. So there's a lot of failure when you're making axes and using them a lot. And it doesn't necessarily come down to you failing, but wood fails. Wood is not permanent. The metal is more permanent, but it's also not permanent either. You still got to sharpen it, and when it wears down, you got to sharpen it again, or when it gets damaged. The wear comes from you sharpening it, not really I mean, yeah, sure, the nicks like that, it's wear, I guess, but really what takes the whole bit down is you correcting the bit and making sure it looks like how it did when it came out of the factory. So I'd keep that same curvature. Instead of just removing from here down, I'd remove everywhere. And that's the correct way it's called bit correction. You'll see a lot of old axes that need bit correction. Here, we'll talk about it with another axe. Here's an axe that I started correcting. Now look, you see how much toe is missing? Look at how much material I removed. I mean, that is more than a 1/4 inch thick maybe that I had to take it down to, and it's still not correct. So the bit would look something like this. Like it would, here, what's going on here? The bit would look something like this. Well, maybe you get it. You kind of get it. Here, let's find one that has a full bit so I can show you the difference. Now, this is an old axe, so I don't have exactly this, but I'll try to find a Michigan pattern, a clean one, and one that's worn. Now, these aren't the same exact maker, but here's a really exaggerated amount of wear compared to a pretty dang full bit. So you see that this is actually one part of, I know this is about handles, but really all of it's connected. So let's talk about this because I think it's really important and I don't see a lot of guys doing it. When you're doing a restoration on an old axe and you want to call it a restoration, you kind of need to do the bit correction. Now with this, you know, what's the point? You just, whatever you're going to do with this, who cares? It's not a restoration, really. Restoration means bringing it back, you know? Making it, I like to preserve the history, so I keep the patina. But really what you want is you want to make it look like what it looked like when it came out of the factory, at least the shape. Now you can't have that same length. Length is from here to here, and width is from here to here. You can't get that same length back, but you can make it look like how it did a little more when there's toe wear. Not this bad, but when there's a little bit of wear, say like to here, you could bring the whole bit back, all of it, and then it will look more, it'll look better. You know, honestly, when they make these axes look like this from the factory, it looks a lot better. A worn Michigan pattern looks like shit. This Michigan pattern, I kind of think it looks great. I think this, usually Michigans don't look that good, and that's because of wear. So if you really want to restore an axe, think about bit correction. And since this is pretty thin, it wouldn't be that hard. You do grind metal perpendicular like this to get rid of it, but it wouldn't get that thick. It wouldn't get that thick like that other one. So when it comes to making your own handles and restoring your own axes, it isn't easy. Like, look at all this. You can imagine how much I did to gather all this, and a lot of it's short, and this is what I got to practice on in the beginning. I didn't have a chainsaw. I just asked tree service guys to help me out, or I would just take wood from the side of the road, usually firewood, so it's already cut down to no more than, 18, 20 inches if I'm lucky. Some of it in here is like 23, 24, so that was lucky. But once I started getting those 30, 40, 50-inch long pieces of timber, that's when I could start doing stuff like this. And stuff like this. This has got a lot of extra wood on it. So these stacks are all messed up because of the flood, so it wasn't that bad of a flood. But there's the shop vac that was doing some work. But it was unfortunate, and I had to do a bunch of stuff to fix it up. Yeah, it isn't easy to make your own handles, but it's easy to start. So my suggestion is do what I did. Start with just firewood. Just save some firewood, glue the ends or seal the ends however you can. Make sure it doesn't crack. Check on it every now and then. And, wait a year, 2 years, so you know it's dry. The thicker it is, the longer it'll take to dry. The denser the wood is, usually it takes a long time to dry. I mean, oak takes a long time, even with the big pores, it seems. Maple doesn't take a long time, supposedly. And that's kind of what I've found, but not the best for a full-size handle. And once it's dry, and you don't even need to wait. Honestly, you don't need to start with dry timber. Just make a hatchet handle without it being dry. It'll be easier to carve, way easier to carve with a hatchet if it's green. That's actually my favorite kind of carving, is green wood carving. Easier on your edge, less sharpening, easier to shape. Everything's nicer about it, except for the very last bit of finishing where you're getting curves. And nobody does the curves with their carving tools, really. Not nobody, but very few do that. So you don't have to worry about that. Finish with your files and rasps. Yeah, you're gonna lose a lot of lumber if you did it how I did it. So maybe you could learn from me. These stacks like this, it's a bad idea. It allows too much airflow in the beginning. Yeah, that's why you'll see shelves of wood drying. They're just together. They're just right together. I mean, as long as you don't put them together when they're soaking wet, you gain a lot of stuff when you start on this journey of making your own handles. You learn the local timber. If you're doing it locally, you just want to harvest timber yourself, or ask for help from someone else. If you get the local timber, you learn the timber. You learn how it works. You learn how strong it is. I mean, there's so many benefits to this little journey I started. At least for me, what I've found. This is black locust. More black locust. This is some red oak, I think. This is some hickory. Some pin oak. Some of these aren't right side. Oh, this is cherry. What's that other one? No, I think that's hickory, but yeah, this is cherry. And so I can do all the wood I have. Like I can make the wedge, I can make the handle, I can make dowels. I even made my own vice bench. You see this? These legs on this vice bench still has a little bit of bark. That's beech. This mallet, beech, and pin oak handle. These little pieces right here, this is some hickory, I think. And this just covers this little cubby with my pastes, my abrasive pastes, and a little bit of a screwdriver. So I gained so much from being able to work timber. Like, look at this little carving table. Here's a little, if I want to make a, I don't know what I'm going to make with that, but it's a big piece, big chunk, like that thick of pin oak. And it's a slab, small slab. I've just been, really lucky that I had all this white oak available to me. I didn't go 3 hours away. It was being taken down a couple of 100 feet away from me, and I asked, hey, can you bring that over? And so that's how I got a lot of my riving woods. This is about 36 inches long, and it's American sweet gum, which you're not supposed to be able to rive, but good enough. It was actually easy to rive, and I got my vice bench out of it. It's a little short, but smaller footprint, easier to move around, not in the way as much. But that's why the vice has to be like pretty far, because otherwise I can't scoop back my butt. So I'm talking about all these tools and all the stuff I've made, and I think it goes along with it's not that easy. All this stuff is not that easy. You have to really care about it, and I talk about how it's a passion for me and not a hobby later in this video. To me, that's a different thing. It's not like, oh, this gets me out of my head. No, I love this stuff. I live for this stuff. So if you don't really live for it, maybe you're going to be a lot less obsessed, and maybe those little tips and tricks that I've learned only from obsession or only from talking to like really experienced and smart people about this stuff, you might not ever get that. Now, I do try to give that stuff out as best I can, but not everybody's going to get the same information. And there's probably a lot of stuff I still don't know. There is. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of investment of time, and if you want to trade time for money, then it's going to cost a lot of money. But I invested time instead of money. On the metal, I did spend a little money, but honestly not too much. But on all the wood, this is almost all just me processing wood and waiting for it to dry. Only old handles were not my own. So is it easy to make a handle? No, but it'll make your life a lot easier if you love axes and you want to try as many as possible. That to me, that's, I couldn't do it. I can't spend hundreds of dollars on each axe I want to try. I can spend a couple dollars maybe on each axe I want to try, and I spend time. The currency I really spend is time on gathering, processing the wood, finding the axes. I do love the hunt of finding axes, and I don't mind the hunt of finding timber either. I'll listen for a chainsaw, and yeah. Let's flip this camera. The time I spend making this stuff is a time I enjoy. I think I need to exercise, so it's good to pick up big heavy pieces of wood. It's not bad to use a draw knife for you. My grip strength is probably a lot stronger than it used to be. Now I am dealing with a little bit of something in my elbow, but that's self-inflicted and not really an injury, I don't think. I haven't gotten checked yet, but yeah, I'm thinking I have a king disease. I have a disease that kings used to get because they ate and drank too much. But I don't drink alcohol, so I think I just overate into weird sort of arthritis. It's called gout. If you ever heard about gout, it's when uric acid, which can be produced in the body naturally, and foods can turn into purines and other chemicals or compounds. They can turn into uric acid, and then the uric acid When there's too much in your blood, it can gather into your joints, usually your toe or your feet or your knee. I got it in my jaw. I got it in my elbow. I didn't get tested, so I'm just talking about it in general. I don't know if I actually have it, but pretty sure. And they crystallize. This uric acid crystallizes. I thought it was something disgusting when I was little. I was like thinking, I don't know what I thought, but I can get disgusting because I don't want to talk about it too much. But the uric acid and the crystals can kind of stay in one place and blow up and never leave, kind of like a kidney stone in your fucking elbow. So they get real big, I guess. You get like mutilated from this. So I've been, trying to help myself out. It sucks you can't eat the same things that you love, but now a lot of people will say this diet is. I mean, the diet doesn't help that much. You need to take medicine to lower your uric acid because your body produces uric acid no matter what, and the insignificant amount that comes from food might not even do anything. But people do say, I have a gout attack. I ate this and I'm feeling it. So there's definitely something to what you eat. I mean, they didn't call it the fat king disease for no reason, which is embarrassing. I'm not a fat king. I'm just fat. Yeah, so I haven't been swinging as much as I want at all, really. I've found a little bit of things I could do, like kind of why I made this handle is because it's short enough where I was using a handle the handle that I copied, which is this. It didn't hurt that bad. It was kind of nice to use. So that's why I copied. I'm making this. But I might need to make another one because it's cracking pretty bad. So take care of yourselves, guys. Making handles isn't easy. And, there's a lot of things that can come with axes and timber. You can get hurt really bad. So that part isn't easy either. The worst thing that happened to me was I almost ripped my toenail off because I was wearing sandals. And that was because of the timber, not because of axes. And I was always aware that timber can hurt me, and I'll probably get hurt from the timber instead of the axes, as long as I'm being strategic and using the correct technique. But, things do happen. The axe could get me. But I always did think the timber is going to hurt me, and it did. And I could get hurt even worse. Tree service guys that are really good at their jobs, they've gotten hurt, they've gotten killed. So if you are chopping down trees with axes, it's serious. We love axes. We want to swing them, but it might be easier to not use them if you're not ready for the consequences of doing so. Because I've seen a lot of people that put axes into their shin who think they're too experienced to ever do that. And I think I'm experienced, but I know that one day I could hurt myself, and it would be nobody else's fault but my own because I got into this easy hobby. For me, it's not a hobby. I just love axes and timber, and it's kind of like my passion. I would call it a passion more than a hobby. You can also just get acute injuries from using axes. Like people have tennis elbow. I hurt my back a long time ago, maybe 3 years ago. I hurt my back, maybe a little more. And it's still to this day the same back. Like it doesn't hurt, but it can get tight. If I overuse it or if I do certain things, it can be uncomfortable. And part of that is because of my weight. If I lost weight, that would probably help a lot. So if you're going to use axes, if you're going to make an axe, if you're going to make an axe handle, maybe it's easy to you. Maybe it's easier for you to imagine in your head, in your nose. Maybe it's easy for you to imagine in your nose how to make something three-dimensionally with your hands. And it's super simple for you to make a handle. But after that, is it easy for you to use the axe? Do you even know what you're doing? I haven't done much tree work. So for me to go in and process a tree and think I know exactly how to do it the safest way, that's stupid. That's ignorant, and it's unsafe to do that. Now, I have processed a whole tree, some windfall that had quite a bit of branches. It was a silver maple. If you're familiar with that tree species, it just goes all over the place. Just branches, huge stems everywhere. And And that was a lot of work. I was really overwhelmed when I started doing that. And then as it kind of plucked along, you know, it got easier and easier, or at least it got more possible as I went on. But I was pretty careful. Uh, I was like, you know, I've seen a lot of other people be careful on video. So that's the same thing as being an apprentice. You just watch people that are more experienced. And I've watched a lot of more experienced people, I like to think. But that doesn't mean I know like the why. You might not understand why you're doing something, which is super important for your safety. So, um, you know, don't take on that crazy job that if you think making a handle is easy, you know, don't think felling trees is easy, because it is kind of easy. It's simple, but it won't be easy if you get hurt. That won't be easy at all. So it's a dangerous thing we love. You know, just splinters. I'm just covered in splinters. I'm like fucking Hellraiser over here. I got splinters coming out of everything. Um, I hear people say like my skin is too tough for splinters. No, it isn't, dude. You just don't mess with oaks, because I got so many fucking splinters from oaks. Especially when they dry out, there and you didn't like surface them. It's just a piece of firewood. Oh man, brutal, splintery, stringy stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. I don't really know why I went into all this other stuff, but I just want to talk about Axis so much. I just want to talk about them so fucking much. Oh, all day. Let's talk about Axis.